Welcome to our new LT-1 sighting 2014 Corvette motor. James and I are going to give you some video today. James Armour's been with us 18 years, runs the engine department, does programming, and works with a little bit of everything, kind of like I do. We want to show you all about this new motor. We're finally excited about something in the last few years. It's really going to be totally new from the old motors. I mean, completely different. We'd like to show you some stuff. We've all heard about the direct port injection. The tank has a fuel pump that delivers like 35 pounds at idle, 54 at driving, and 78 on full throttle. This pump, as you'll see if you go online, we got a step-by-step article all about from the bottom up. And there's a pump or a push rod just runs off the cam that makes this pump bump up to 2,300 pounds. It's all stainless fittings, so we can't have no leaks. Everything screws together. This is the oil pressure sensor has moved from the back of the motor up to the front. This is your DOD delete cylinders on demand. We'll show you in the web how it does it under the valley pan. And this is your PCV valve has been moved to the front. This also has the fresh air tubes here that go up and tee into the air cleaner. This has all been developed in the last 3 weeks. If we step around to the right over here by James, the crank sensor is still right behind the starter. These are our new headers that we developed in the last 2 weeks. The header flanges are totally different. We've got the V-clamp collectors now. Don't even use a gasket. You can spin the O2 bun any direction you want. On this setup here, we happen to use the Corvette alternator, but we've got 3 or 4 different setups we're working on. Notice these new Corvettes all have electric power steering, and so does the new truck. And on this, we've got the oil pressure regulator sensor here that regulates oil pressure. This is the magnetic sensor for changing the cam position, and the cam sensor still over here on the left like LS2s, 3s, and 7. This is the new 507 compressor, and this is your water pump here. Notice it's a dual-sided rib belt. It runs the water pump counter rotation. Now on the truck we'll show you that water pump is on the driver's side over on this position. So we've got 2 or 3 different bracket kits. This kit, we designed it for like the Art Morrison chassis, the Roaster Shop chassis, street shops, and SR3, we have room to put the compressor down low. We can't use the factory compressor because it's a variable climate controlled compressor. Won't work with the older AC systems. And we'll show you over here, this is our power steering setup that we've been doing now for several years. It has the self-contained power steering reservoir. It has the dipstick right on it. It even has 2 lines for return, and you can even use it with hydrovac. And this is the coil pack. One thing that's changed on this motor, the oil fill is on the driver's side where it's been on the passenger side since the beginning of the LS1. And also the dipsticks on the driver's side. And this is our new oil bypass we've just done, and it's tapped where you can put a temperature sensor or oil pressure right in the tap to the adapter, because this motor runs an oil cooler. As James putting some of it together, I'll explain some stuff. This is the insulator here that goes on the valley pan. Is what they're trying to do is deaden sound. And this is of course just PCV valve that actually hooked to the intake. This is a drive-by-wire throttle body. If you go on the web, we're showing all the differences between the LS3 and 7s in this motor. This is the bottom sensor. See how the map sensor is right here on the driver's side, and the EGR solenoid's over here on the passenger side. But we'll have detail of everything. And the truck throttle body looks more like a truck throttle body. There's the intake, James. You want to get it down. And this is the insulator. They put a lot of insulators on it. This will go on top of the intake. This is all to deaden sound. And this is even the valve cover insulators. They actually are all for deadening sound because they're trying to make this new Corvette so quiet. And there's one for each side. This is shows our new collector with the O2 bun. We offer them in 2.5 and 3. Notice the O2 bun, you can spin it anywhere you want, and it uses no gasket. It just uses a stainless clamp to tighten that. And these are the headers that come on the new LT-1. Notice the oval short port now on the exhaust, where all your ports on 3s, 1s, everything been a round port. So we had to develop a whole new header flange, but it does incorporate the same flange like it's used on the LS7s and 9s. Here's an LS3 flange. Notice how the round ports and the bolt spacing is even different compared to this one. so everything had to be completely developed new. This is the truck water pump we thought we'd show you. And notice how the truck water pump's on the driver's side, and this has 6 bolts. You can just change the water pump real simple, no more having to pull all the water pump. This is your coolant temp sensor. Now it's always been in the head, been moved to the water pump. The thermostat still up on top or on the front, like on this motor here. Thermostat, this is the suction side with the thermostat, and it sucks off the bottom of the radiator. And this one goes to the top of the radiator. They went back to a thermostat similar to the 97 to 03s, where it has the legs on it and thermostat is built into the motor. And this is the new Corvette balancer. Notice how there's no grooves on the front, LS3. And it's still a 6-rib kit. We got a truck balancer here we wanted to show you. Notice the different rings, because they have a vacuum pump that mounts down on the driver's side of the block and uses 2 belt accessories. Another thing that's interesting, these are the oil coolers for like the LS8s and the LS9s, and notice the bolt spacing here is totally wider with the new motor. James about got the top on there. Here's the insulator for the passenger side there, James. And see how we got the fuel inlet coming up through the covers? James will get these on here. Excuse me. And then on the mass airflow, it's totally changed again. Notice this has an 8-pin mass airflow. And what they have is, of course, your mass airflow 3-pin, 2 pins for air temperature, and then we have the other pins for humidity. It's actually telling the computer the humidity coming into the engine. This is one of the elbows we've designed. We're designing some more stuff as we go along. And this throttle body here shows you your typical LS3, LS7 throttle body that had the big motor on it. But they do have the same size butterflies, because this still is LS3 372 cubic inch. One of the differences in the oil pans, this is a typical LS3 oil pan. And if you go on the web, it's going to show that this is about a 3/4 inch pickup tube. And the new one in the new motor is like 1 inch. Plus, this is an oil float to tell you if you get low on oil. And the new one has an oil sensor sitting right here. You'll see on the web or in some of the magazines. Some of the magazines are going to do stories on this. And if you come to SEMA, you get to see it in person. James is starting to get it where it looks like a motor now. And notice how we've got a spring-loaded tensioner for the power steering. Remember, that balancer didn't have grooves on the front. So we thought about putting it in lathe and grooving it and stuff. James came up with this idea where we actually machine the front cover, and then extends back over the balancer, which has grooves in it to let us run the power steering. And this is our tensioner for the AC. So next time we get to show you this on video, we hope to have it in the car after SEMA and doing some test drives. We're going to try to get it dynoed before SEMA. And so really turned out to be a pretty motor. And notice how it looks so much better or different than LS1. So when you put this one in your car, they'll know it's just not an LS1, 2, or 3. Be sure to check us out on the web, and we'll do some more video specials. We dyno it, maybe we'll get you the horsepower and torque specs. The factory rates it at 455, and then also rates it at, with performance exhaust, 465, but it's within 5 pounds of torque of an LS7, so you don't have the expense of the LS7 and still going to get almost as much power as an LS7. I think it's going to be a real bargain for what the price is and the technologies up front. And we're the first company that does this. And GM offers a cruise package, but they use a separate controller for the training and a separate controller for the engine, where we still can do all the motors and run them all on one harness and one diagnostic link like the factory does.